You ever feel like investing should be simple, but your brain turns it into a high stakes exam? You check your account, you read one scary headline, and suddenly you're questioning everything, whether you should buy, sell, or wait, or do nothing at all. If investing triggers anxiety, you're not irresponsible, you're actually human. Today, I'm going to give you an investment operating system, simple decision rules, and emotional regulation tools that stop the second guessing and keep you consistent, even when the market is doing the absolute most. You're going to get to download the rules and watch the YouTube deep dive after this episode. Now, let's lock in. Welcome back. What's happening, my fabulous financiers? You're locked into another episode of the Do Different Better show, where we break down wealth wisdom for and money moves for everyday people. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, founder of Social Impact Now and Connective Institute, and managing partner of the Integrated Capital Fund. Let's start here. If investing makes you feel tense, you get a slight tightness in your chest anytime somebody mentions the word investing, or you're obsessive, or you're always like one decision away from messing up your whole entire future, welcome. You're not alone and you're not broken. Some of the most competent, high performing people I know, people who run teams and businesses and households and entire ecosystems, get emotionally clotheslined by a 3% market dip. And the reason isn't that you are or they are bad with money. The reason could possibly be that investing is a psychological perfect storm. Uncertainty plus consequences plus too many options plus too much noise. Who would be able to sift through all of that? That's a lot of variables happening all at the same time. So today's episode is called Investing While Anxious. Not investing while perfect, not investing while calm and unbothered like a monk, but investing while anxious. And by the end of this episode, my goal is that you're going to have a personal investment operating system, a set of rules and rhythms that actually reduce the second guessing, cut down on the panic checking, and make your strategy feel trustworthy, even when your nervous system seems to be having a whole hit parade on its own. Now, first, we have to name what's actually happening. That's super important, right? We want to get clarity so that we can get to solutions. So here is a pattern. I want to you tell me if you recognize any of this in yourself. If you're an anxious investor, you're probably doing at least one of these things that I'm going to mention. You're checking your accounts often, sometimes daily, sometimes multiple times a day. You're consuming financial content like it's breaking news coming on CNN, and suddenly you're convinced you need to change every single thing about your investing portfolio, or you're questioning everything that's on your 401k statement. Maybe you do research and research and research, and you still don't invest because you want clarity first. That happened to some of the women in my Do Different Better group. Or you invest impulsively when you feel behind and then you regret it. But here's the key: a lot of people think they're being responsible when they do this. And it's not, because there's a difference between actually planning and ruminating. Planning is something that's very, very specific. It's time bound and it ends in a decision. Something happens, an action is taken, some movement is made to create some forward motion. Rumination is repetitive, it's very emotionally loaded, and it ends in more thinking, not more doing. If you've been thinking about the same investing question for weeks, maybe months, and you haven't taken a clear action, one step, you might not be planning. You actually might be looping. You might want to check out my episode on that. And here's why investing triggers loops so easily. Your brain is designed to detect risk. It's not designed to manage portfolios. Investing contains three things that your brain actually cannot stand, right? One, uncertainty. But you can't know what happens next. Number 2, irreversibility. Choices feel permanent. And 3, identity stakes. Money decisions feel like they're a referendum on your intelligence or who you are as a person, not understanding that that's very different than the competency you may show in your daily life, in your job, in your profession. So here's the process in plain language. Here's what may have happened. You tell me if this sounds familiar. The market moves or a headline hits. Your brain interprets uncertainty as risk. Your nervous system tries to create control. The easiest form of control is mental rehearsal. Let me think through every single possible outcome. That's what your brain might be saying. And then you check and recheck because checking gives a temporary hit of dopamine and certainty. The problem is the certainty, that dopamine hit, that adrenaline hit, it actually wears off. So guess what? You need another hit. And that's how you get trapped in checking behavior. And checking without a system isn't a strategy. It's actually gasoline on a campfire. Now, add social media to all of this and the financial media on top of that, you have a recipe for destruction. A lot of people think if I just learn more, I'll actually feel calmer. And sometimes learning does help. But when you're already anxious, more information often increases your volatility in your actual emotions. Because financial content is actually designed to grab your attention, just like everything else, whether it's on the media, on the news, or whether it's social media. It also is meant to trigger urgency. So that feeling of urgency you're feeling is authentic. They want you to feel that. It's set up to do that. They also creates the feeling that you're behind. And sometimes, and oftentimes, it's actually there to sell you something. So you end up doing what I call advice whiplash, right? Buy this, sell that, recession, soft landing, AI boom, crash is coming. We've got a depression, we're in a recession, right? And your brain goes, cool. So we can never actually relax. Perfect. Heard. Anxiety hates ambiguity, and the internet is ambiguity with a full on ring light and audience. Now, let's lightly bring in the wealth identity because people loop very differently. Wealth identity is how your anxiety will actually show up. This isn't a diagnosis, but it's more like a mirror to help you understand like where you're sitting. And I want you to listen for if any of this actually hits for you. You want the perfect strategy, you over engineer the plan, then you freeze because it's too complex. Those are my builders. The builder anxiety says, if I build the perfect system, I'll be safe. I'll feel warm and fuzzy. I'll feel good. For my caretakers, you feel moral pressure. You carry responsibility for others. So investing feels like I can't mess this up because people depend on me. The caretaker anxiety says, what if I fail them? Now, on to my maximizers. Now, I love y'all. Y'all maximizers really, really do a number on yourselves. You compare, then you optimize, and then you chase for the best move. Maximizer anxiety says, I should be doing this better than how I'm doing it right now. But you don't really have the information or the tools to be able to do that. So it's an unacceptable expectation of yourself. It's unrealistic. And finally, my minimalist strategist. You actually avoid money administration at all. Then you check it in bursts, and that's when your anxiety spikes, not only before, but during, because it's been so long that you've been looking at it. You haven't looked at it. Your anxiety says, this is too much, and I'm not going to manage it until it's urgent. Same market, different nervous systems, but the result is always the same. So I really want you to think about and name your trigger because naming it will actually reduce chaos because I'm going to give you solutions that are going to be based on what your trigger is. Now, if you really want to name your investing trigger, I want you to answer these 3 questions. The first question is, when the market drops, do you check, avoid, over-research, or sell? Number 2, what content spikes you the most? TikTok hot takes, CNBC headlines, Reddit chaos, or expert threads? And number three, what's your core fear? I'm behind, I'll pick wrong, I'll lose it all, or I'll never catch up. So you've got your identity or your trigger. Good. Hold on to that. Here's the reframe that's going to run through this whole episode. Your goal isn't to eliminate anxiety. Your goal is to eliminate impulsive decisions. And that requires an operating system. So, I really want you to think about what might be coming up for you. But coming up, we're actually going to be talking about the investment operating system. We're going to be talking about the purpose, the horizon, the cadence, and the decision rules. Because when you get to create some rules, this is how you're actually going to be able to overcome those emotional bursts. The whole idea of this is not to mitigate or not to stop you from having these emotional bursts or these adrenaline bursts or these anxiety bursts. It's okay to feel that. That's going to be your first impulse. That's going to be your default system. The purpose of this is not to try to change that. The purpose is to get to what happens next and not acting on that impulse, but giving that impulse a time to happen, subside, because you have something that is going to be a container that's going to help you manage it, right? Because again, we're always going to default to our baser instinct, right? And if you are an anxious person just by nature, if you're a caretaker by nature, if you're a maximizer by nature, you can work on changing that. That's fine. But that's not my goal here. My goal is let's identify actually where you are and what it means and what's triggering you and how you're being triggered so that we can actually map solutions that match that. Now, after that, if you want to work on changing your identity and how you cope with things, that's great. But that's a whole different thing than what we're trying to do here. I just want you to recognize that we're not trying to change who you are. We're just trying to recognize what are the triggers that you're dealing with and what might be the optimal way for you to counterbalance that, right? So I always think about this as first thought, second thought. Your first thought is the spike in adrenaline, the spike in anxiety, the spike in energy, the heart beating fast. But what's thought number two? Thought number two is, okay, I know that about myself. So here are the things that I have put in place to deal with that. So I can actually move something forward based on how I take in information, based on how I actually manage things in my life or how I see things, my perspective of how I manage things in my life. Okay. So, because rules and boundaries actually beat mood swings, right? Every single time, right? So, what is it? Rules beat moods every single time. So, we're going to be talking about this, about our new system coming up in the next part of the show. You're listening to the Do Different Better show. I am your host, Elaine Rasmussen. I will see you after the break. Welcome back to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and we are talking about investing while anxious. And in the first segment, we talked about like what is actually happening and why you might be anxious. So now I'm going to be outlining for you an investment operating system for that you can use, and it's going to be simple as always that you can start to get on your journey, right? So your investment operating system needs rules, right? If you ever said, I know what I should do, but I don't do it, you don't have necessarily an information problem. You have a process problem. So we're now going to be talking about process. I'm going to be giving you a framework called your investment operating system or your iOS. And no, not the Apple one, okay? Although, if Apple wants to sponsor the show, I'm emotionally available for that. I would love to see that happen. But this is your iOS, which is your personal system to reduce second guessing, right? We're going to end the second guessing right away because we also know with second guessing, it costs you time, right? And then you don't make a decision and then you miss out on opportunities. So here's what it is. It has 5 parts, right? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First is purpose. 2 is time horizon, 3 is allocation, a simple allocation, and 4 is cadence, and 5 is decision rules. All right. So, first, let's talk about purpose. What is the money actually for? Most anxiety comes from very vague goals. And we've talked about that, right? If you don't know what the money is for, every market move feels personal. So, how do we define purpose? Is this going to be money for retirement? Is it going to be a house down payment? Is it going to be a freedom fund? Is this for your kid's future? Is this for I want options fund, right? Meaning I can quit my job or some other kind of wonderful, amazing thing. I want to travel around the world, whatever the case may be is. If your purpose is long term, you can stop reacting to the short term noise because you're clear on like, this is what this money is for. Number 2, time horizon. The anxiety reducer nobody uses, unfortunately. Time horizon is how long until you need the money. And here's a simple rule. If it's under 3 years, this isn't investing money. This is protect the principal money, right? If it's 3 to 10 years, you can take some moderate risk, take a balanced approach, some things that might be high risk, high return, and low return, low risk. And then 10 years or more, you can tolerate some volatility because time is actually going to do the heavy lifting. A lot of anxious investors are accidentally investing short term money and then wondering why they can't sleep at night. If you are investing money you might need soon, your anxiety is not irrational, it's accurate, right? Number 3, allocation. Simple beats clever. You don't need a complicated portfolio to be successful or to get to your wealth goals. What you do need is consistency. A simple allocation you can explain in one sentence is better than a complex allocation you abandon when you're stressed or you're reacting to some news, some headline on TikTok, right? Or on the news. If you're using retirement accounts, you can often use a broad index funds or target date style allocations. It's simple, it's diversified, it's boring. Boring is a wonderful feature, right? Cadence is how you contain checking and prevention of emotional trading, right? Because that's not what we want. We don't want to be just responding in the moment, right? Because we're feeling some kind of rush of blood into our brain. I want you to pick one thing. I want you to do a monthly review or a quarterly review. Often this is best for long-term investors. But here's the boundary I want you to keep. You can notice what you're feeling. You can write down questions you have, but you don't change the plan. The one change eliminates, this one change can eliminate 60% of your anxious investing behavior, right? This is where we convert emotion into structure, right? Especially if you're doing this on your own. Now, if you have a wealth advisor, they're trained to do that. So, but decision rules are if then statements that remove negotiation with yourself and going back and forth and then delaying decision making. I'm going to give you a starter pack and that you'll get to personalize later. So here's rule A, the 24-hour rule. If you feel urgency to buy or sell, then wait 24 hours. Very simple. Rule B, the headline filter. If I'm reacting to a headline, then I do nothing until my scheduled review, whenever that is, whether it's quarterly, whether it's monthly, whatever the case may be is. And rule C, the checking boundary. If I check accounts more than once per week, then I'm in anxiety, not strategy. And I returned back to my cadence, right? Rule D, the new money first rule. If I want to buy something new, then I fund it with new contributions, not by selling my core holdings, right? Rule E, no panic sales rule. If the market drops sharply, then I do not sell based on fear. I follow my plan, right? Now we add emotional regulation because a rule you can't follow under stress isn't a rule, it's actually a wish. When our anxiety spikes, you can do this. Number 1, name it. This is uncertainty. This is comparison. This is fear or regret. Number two, park it. I'll review this on my cadence day. Again, whatever you decide that is. Number three, contain it. Close the app or limit the amount of content intake you're taking. And number four, one sentence. My job is consistency, not prediction. That sentence matters. It tells your brain what the job actually is instead of your emotion telling what the job is. Because the anxiety thinks the job is to predict, and it actually isn't. No one, no, now one more tie in into what actually matters. And this is our buffer and our brick house, right? Anxiety proofing your investing. If you don't have a buffer, cash that you can use for surprises, your investments become your emergency fund. And that's not what we're trying to do. And that makes every market drop feel like it's a threat to your safety, your financial safety, your emotional safety, your physical safety. So the system is your buffer actually handles your surprises. Your investments handle your long term goals. Those are two different things. And your brick house, which is your emergency fund, protects you from life's big punches. When your buffer is missing, investing anxiety is actually going to go through the roof because you're not just watching a number move, you're watching your perceived safety move. And that's what's really causing all of the anxiety within your heart, right? That's what's making you feel sweaty. That's what's making you feel like not being able to sleep. So if you're anxious, I want you to check this. Are you investing money you might need for a near term issue because your buffer is already thin or maybe non existent? If the answer is yes, the fix might not be more courage. It might actually be you need more buffer. So, coming up in in our next segment, I'm going to be talking about how to actually apply these rules to real life scenarios. I'm going to talk about how do you apply them to market dips, how to apply them to hype that you might be seeing. I'm also going to talk about the I'm behind spirals and what are some of those lump sums so that your system actually works in real life. And my goal at the end is, I want to send you to the website and for you to get some more information and some more resources that hopefully are going to help you kind of think through some of this information and sift it. And I really want you to maybe, if you're listening to this in the car, if you're listening to this, on a walk, if you're listening to this while you're riding a bike, I really want you to think about if this episode is really hitting for you, I want you to mark on your calendar to sit and just listen to it again and think through what might be happening with you with your investments. When you see that investment envelope or your 401k statement envelope come, what comes up for you? And I just want you to sit and really think about it and write down. You don't have to journal. I'm not going to make you journal, but if you want to journal, that's great. But sit down and really think about what's coming up for me, what might be happening, what might need to think about, how am I actually feeling about all of these things that we're talking about when it comes to investing. Do I even want to invest? Because that's an important question either. Should somebody else do it for me? Maybe you can't seem to get over the anxiety in any way, shape, form, or fashion. That is a signal that maybe you should not be managing your investing. That might be a great time for you to bring in a professional to help you, whether that's a certified financial planner or whether that's a wealth advisor, depending on where you are sitting in your wealth journey. But in any event, in any case, this is really the time for you to think about, can you really manage this and not get yourself all up in a tizzy? Because if you are finding that having these conversations or looking at your investment portfolio is just one anxiety punch after another, and you can't seem to switch your brain off of it, maybe you need some help. And that's where you bring in a professional to help support you on this journey. And that can maybe you can still do some of the things that I'm talking about in this particular episode, but now you have somebody else who's actually going to make the decisions. And you can now be able to say, hey, I'm going to have a quarterly call with my certified financial planner. I'm going to have a quarterly call with my wealth advisor to be able to talk through some of the headlines that are coming up. And I would recommend that you make that call 20 to 30 minutes because here's the thing, if you make that call for a whole entire hour, all you're going to do is create more anxiety and more spin that's happening in your head. And that's not fair to your wealth advisor, right? And it's not fair to you, quite frankly. So I really want you to think about if you're going to go that route, or maybe you already have a certified financial planner you're working with, or maybe you already have an advisor. And if you really need that level of care, schedule a quarterly call, make that call 20 minutes. So it's not an opportunity for you to just go down the rabbit hole, but it's a time for you to check in, say what you're worried about, hear what a professional has to say about it, and get off the phone. The whole idea is to turn our brains down, right? Now, coming up in the final segment, I'm going to be talking about getting super, super practical. Right? Because I really don't want the spirals to become more than what they are. What we're also going to talk about some spiral scenarios. So I want you to take a deep breath in and let it out because that was a lot. I know that was a lot, but you're going to be okay. You're listening to this show, so you're going to be fine. No worries, no problems, right? But when we get back, we're going to get into deep dive into really some practical solutions that are going to help you. You're listening to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and I will see you after the break. Welcome back, my mini moguls in training. You are listening to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. We have been talking about investing while anxious. In the beginning of the show, I talked about actually what is actually happening and naming what kind of anxiety you might be happening and where, as it relates to your wealth identity, where might you fall in the wealth identity and your anxiety around investing and how that actually shows up in how you think about investing and what might be happening when you hear different pieces of information. Then we kind of talked about what are maybe some rules that you can put in or triggers that you can put in. But we really haven't really dealt with some of the practical pieces of this. And so that's what we're going to get into now. I'm going to get super, super practical because people don't spiral in theory. They spiral in different scenarios. So we're going to talk about some scenarios and hopefully you will help you train to respond when your brain starts acting like the market is in this is a personal assault on your portfolio, right? So here's the rule that I'm going to ask you to like kind of apply when we're as you're listening to this. The goal is not to have no anxiety at all. That's not the goal. That's not realistic. So, for those of you, my type A's in particular, who think that this is going to be a one solve solution and your anxiety is going to go away, that's not the goal. And that's not what's going to happen. So, I don't want to promise you a thing, knowing that that's not going to be a thing, right? But the goal is to have zero impulsive decisions, right? That you're not making decisions from an impulse. It is natural to have anxiety. It is that first heightened sense of like fight or flight, right? That's your fight or flight kicking in. But then what do we do next? What do we do with that, right? That we're not acting on that. We're actually taking a step back and zooming out a little bit. So here's scenario number one. The market drops 5 to 10%. We've actually been seeing quite a lot of that lately. This is actually normal volatility in the market. It's not an emergency. It is the price of admission. The market goes up and down by 5 and 10% all the time. You are just not aware. You're hypersensitive to it because you don't do it for a living. And that's fair, right? I'm not saying that that's not should be your expectation. You don't when you don't interact with a thing, some of those surprises are actually surprises to you, as opposed to if you were doing it every day or looking at the market every day over a long period of time, you would see and understand that it's natural. So what we've got to do is we've got to put in a system that recognizes that that's natural volatility. So here's a rule that maybe you might want to implement. If the market drops 5 to 10%, then I do nothing outside of my cadence, right? I do not check more often. I do not research for 5 hours. Now, if you're a long term investor, your job is to continue your contributions, not to react. Okay. So I hope you're starting to see how this is going to play out for the next two scenarios. Scenario number two, the market drops 20% and the headlines scream recession. This is where anxious investors get trapped. It is the constant doom content scrolling, constant doom plus constant checking, always checking, checking. So here is your if then statement. If headlines spike me, then I reduce exposure. News windows only or two sources max. That's all that I'm going to do. If I feel panic, then I return to my plan, allocation plus cadence plus rules. And if your plan includes rebalancing, you do it on a schedule and not on adrenaline. Okay? Scenario number three. This is what I call hot stock, crypto, AI hype, whatever. This is where people get FOMO or fear of missing out. And they start selling some of their stable holdings to go chase a story or quick money fast. So here could be your if then statement. If I feel FOMO, then I will wait 24 hours before I do anything. If I still want it, I can allocate a small sandbox percentage of money that I can afford to lose without touching my core investments. Sandbox keeps curiosity from becoming sabotage and ruining your whole entire portfolio. And if you don't want a sandbox, great. Then your rule can be I don't invest in hype, period. Stop. Done. Scenario number four, you get a lump sum of money, a bonus, an inheritance, a tax refund. This is another place where anxiety and perfectionism can collide. You feel pressure to do something with that money and to do it right. And so you're so caught up in trying to do the right thing, you do absolutely nothing. Or you drop it all at once and then obsess daily about what you did with it and whether that was the right thing or the wrong thing. So here's your if then statement. If I receive a lump sum and I feel anxious, then I stage it. I'll invest X amount over these amount of weeks and these amount of months. Or I can use a preset plan, 50% now and 50% over 6 months, whatever you choose. Maybe you decide 50% I'm actually going to invest in making an improvement on my home or putting it into my buffer account. And I'm going to take 50% and I'm going to put it into a 1-year CD, which is going to go into my brick house emergency fund. Whatever the case may be, these are just suggestions. I'm just trying to give you ideas of what you could possibly, how you can create these rules for yourself when you write them down. The point is that you decide the plan before the emotion takes over. Now it's not eliminate your emotion. That's not the goal, is that your emotion doesn't take over your decision making. That is the goal. Here's scenario number five, the I'm behind comparison spiral. This one is really, really common, especially in the day of social media, and it is super, super painful, right? You can see someone online claiming massive returns and you think, ugh, I'm failing. I'm failing miserably. I'm so far behind. Comparison triggers urgency, and it's a false urgency, right? It is not real. But your brain thinks it's real because it doesn't, you've heard the placebo effect. Whether it's real or not, your brain thinks it's real and it makes decision and sends signals throughout your body as if it were real. Urgency triggers bad decisions, right? So here's an if then statement for you. If I fall behind, then I do not change strategy. I can change my contributions. That's the actual move, right? I can change the amount that I put in, up or down, right? You can increase your investing rate by 1 to 2% or set a very specific monthly increase every month or for a term amount of months, 6 months. For 6 months, I'm going to increase by 1% or 5% or 10%, or I'm going to do 3% for the next 12 months, whatever you want. But the whole idea is that you now have a container. And that container is consistency, and consistency beats drama. Scenario number 6, unexpected bill triggers. The car breaks. A kid needs a new something. There's a medical copay you didn't expect, or a home repair, or an insurance deductible because you got into a car accident because of the winter weather. And your brain says, should I sell my investments? Here's an if then statement for you. If an unexpected bill happens, then I will use my buffer first and not my investments. If my buffer is not enough, then I will use the next safest source of income or money or funds. I do not raid long term investments unless it is a true emergency, right? Maybe it's a long term medical crisis. This is why buffer exists, to protect your investing plan from the things that happen that we call life. Now, I want you to build your personal iOS out loud right now, 5 prompts. And so we're going to do this in 3 minutes, okay? So you're going to say it, you're going to write it, and you're going to put it in your notes app. Okay, I'm going to go slow for this one. So the first one, you're going to write down, my purpose is. Again, this is maybe retirement. This is for, I want to travel the world. I want whatever the purpose is. Maybe it's to buy a second home. Maybe it is to pay for your kids' college tuition. Maybe it's to pay for your college tuition or some advanced degree or advanced certification, right? My purpose is. That's number 1. Number 2, my time horizon is. What is your time horizon? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 5 years? Right? That's a thing as well. Number 3, my simple allocation is. What is the allocation? And number 4, my review cadence is. Once again, is this monthly? Is this quarterly? Is this biannually? Is it annually? Right? Particularly if you've been doing this for a while, you maybe start to think, I don't need to check in as often as I used to. Or I have an advisor and I'm going to check in with the advisor once a year. That's something that I do. I check in with my advisor once a year, but I'm kind of keeping tabs on things. I get my statements, but I'm not obsessing about these things. And then number 5, my top 5 if then rules are, and you're going to write them down. If this happens, then that happens. If this happens, then that happens. You're going to do that. What are your 5 rules that are going to be governing your thought process and your emotions as it relates to your portfolio and moving investments, whether it's increasing, selling, whatever the situation is? Guess what? That's your investing operating system. Simple, right? And here's what happens when you have an investment operating system. You stop renegotiating the same decision time and time and time again, whether that's every day or every week or every month. And you actually have forward traction because you've made a decision. You stop turning deadlines into emergencies. You stop confusing anxiety with actual insight. It's actionable. You can feel anxious, but still act consistently. Again, the goal of this is not for us to stop having you have anxiety. I'm not that powerful, and maybe you're not that powerful either. But the goal is that you feel the anxiety, and now you have a mechanism by which you can manage the anxiety. That is actually the goal. So I hope this was super helpful for you. And this episode really is this bridge between what we were doing in the first quarter of the year, the first 3 months of the year, and the episodes that I talked about of really helping you understand what's happening with the human, what's happening within your body as we have these conversations about money, about finance, about saving, about investing, about where you are sitting from when your wealth identity, where you're sitting in your wealth capacity, because all of that is going to trigger how you actually start to design your financial life, which then impacts how you build the rest of your life, right? Your professional life, the jobs you decide to take, where you decide to move, how large you decide your family is going to be, how many people you're going to take into your family, whatever that needs to look like. And so as we move into the next 3 months of the year, I'm really going to be focusing on activation because I want you to move from like what you're thinking about to actually creating processes by which you're actually going to do your investing, whatever that is, whether that's in acquiring a property, whether that is investing in the market, whether that is starting a business. What are all those things? So now that we've kind of talked about the brain activity in the first part of the year, the next part of the year, we're actually now going to be doing some acting. I'm not going to be telling you where to invest. I am not a registered investment advisor, so I'm not going to be telling you where to invest, but I'm planning on giving you frameworks by which you can think about and have conversations either with your partner or with a financial planner, or if you're in an angel investing group, how you might be able to have some of those conversations. But the idea is that the plan does not become a prison. That is not the goal here, right? Again, it is a mechanism by which to free you of your own self-sabotaging emotions and being a victim or having a stranglehold of your own emotions, right? Your plan is actually your freedom. It is your mental freedom. It is your financial freedom. It could be possibly be your physical freedom, right? Because if you're able to actually do things with your investments, you're able to have this physical freedom to be, like I said, if your goal is to move to a different country, if your goal is to move to a different city it's more expensive than where you are, or downsizing to a city that's less expensive than where you are. So here's something I want you to think about as far as some of the next steps. I really want you to bookmark this episode, maybe re-listen to it again while you're able to sit down and concentrate. Maybe it's on your next cadence day. You're going to schedule to listen to this episode. Maybe you're going to sit and listen to it with your partner and get their feedback on what they're thinking about, or a really good friend where you're both on a solid money journey together. But what you can do is you can go to the website and you can download some of the resources that I'm talking about here that are going to be made available to you coming up. So, and I'm going to be doing an even deeper dive on YouTube so you can go and catch that there as well. So what you're going to look for when you get to the website is the anxious investment decision rules. It's an if-then playbook that you can print, you can save, and actually use over and over and over again, because also your life is going to change. So the way you're going to be approaching things now could look very different in a year from now. So you can come back, you can listen to this, you can replay the episode, and you can reprint out another copy of the playbook and then do this exercise all over again. But here's something that I really want you to remember. Your rules will beat your moods every single time. And consistency beats prediction and chaos, right? Because when you are consistent, it doesn't matter what the storm is. You know exactly where you're supposed to be standing. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And that doesn't mean you can't change. But the whole idea is you now have a mechanism and a plan and an operational system on how you're going to react and respond. And calm isn't the absence of volatility, right? You can be calm in a storm. It's the presence of a system that actually starts to create this level of calm so that you can actually be able to navigate what might be coming or what is actually already happening. So, I hope this was useful for you. I definitely hit me up on the website, send me a note on the website, send me a comment on the YouTube channel. I really want to hear from you all of what's helping, what is resonating with you, what would you like to see more of, what would you like to hear less of, right? Particularly as we move into the next quarter of episodes and thinking about what activations would you like to see? What kinds of things would you like to hear? Are you thinking that you need help with? And this can be around a broad spectrum thing. Is it actually investing in real estate? Is it investing in the public market? Is it investing in the private market? We're definitely going to redo an episode on the different asset classes. What are the different investing options that are available to you? Because there are different investing options that are available at different parts of your wealth capacity journey, right? As you move through your wealth capacity, different things start to open up. Also, there are different opportunities that open up depending on how much wealth you have. So, depending on where you are, different investing opportunities begin to open up as you move from being a non credited investor to an accredited investor. And we'll talk more about that going forward. But I want you to start to get ready. And if this is your first episode that you're listening to, definitely go back to the first episode of the year and listen to all the episodes coming up. But one of the things I definitely want to share with you, we're getting ready. We're now on our 95th episode. That's so amazing. And I want to thank you for all of you who have stayed with the journey. I definitely want to give a big shout out to my partner, my radio partner, AM 950. But we're definitely going to have if you're in the Twin Cities, we're going to be having a little shindig to celebrate our 100th episode coming up. I'll have more on the website and more on my Instagram at Do Better with Elaine. And I hope you come out and join me at our little shindig. We don't have all the plans set just yet, but when we do, we'll be definitely making a big announcement and sharing that with all of you. But as we start to wrap up this episode, I hope that this investing operating system is giving you a little different perspective to maybe reduce your anxiety, but also give you a framework by which you can make better decisions on how to manage your investing portfolio, whether you're just a beginner or you're a little further along and you have some investments. I hope this episode was helpful for you. You've been listening to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. I can't wait to see you next time when I help you do different better.